Moral relativism has become the backbone of our society. What is the true definition of tolerance?
The myth of moral neutrality.
Morality deals with principles of rights. Hope is believing in God's promises.
The teleological argument for the existence of God. It is also called the argument from design. Unlike the cosmological argument, this is not based on mere existence, but rather on the properties of the universe. Not just the existence of the universe, but the properties, the design of the universe. The countless laws of physics require the creator of those laws. Laws do not come into existence without a creator. The existence of a law necessitates the existence of a law giver or a law creator. An intricately crafted universe points to an intelligent designer behind this intricate design. So the teleological arguments basically advocates that we have a planet perfect for life. For example, the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, the size of planet Earth. If it was just a little smaller, a little bigger, it would be inhospitable for human life. The distance to the sun, if it was just a little, and I'll tell you when I say a little, I don't mean few miles, I mean few feet, and that is not an exaggeration. From the sun, it would burn, and if it was distant from the sun, it would be inhospitable to human life. The expansion of the universe, the force of gravity, all these intricately, as I mentioned, designed properties of the universe point to a designer of these properties. For example, the expansion of the universe, if larger, then there will be no galaxy formation. If smaller, the universe will collapse before star formation. The force of gravity. Dr. P.W. Davies mentioned that if it is larger, stars would be too hot and would burn up quickly and evenly. If smaller, stars would be too cool and nuclear fusion would not ignite. In fact, it is precise a factor of 1 in 10 to the 100th. That's 100 zeros. Basically, the teleological argument states that there are 51 fine-tuned parameters to our galaxy and solar systems and planet that makes this perfect planet for life. Its distance from the sun, its size, temperature, stability of Jupiter and Saturn, other planets as well. The teleological argument says that, it's also called the watchmaker argument, it says that, advocates that if you were to bring a watch, for example, if you were to bring this watch and you take this watch into small pieces, let's say hundreds of pieces of this watch, and you scatter these pieces, let's say on the floor somewhere, parking lot of a shopping center, and you wait for a storm to come, and takes these hundreds of pieces of this watch, reassembles this watch in a way that it would be an actual watch that would tell time accurately. What are the chances? And by the way, these theories are advocated by atheists or anti-theists that say that if you were to give the universe enough time, matter plus energy plus time plus chance will produce this world. Now, what is the greater leap of faith? Is to think that matter plus time plus chance will produce this design of this universe, or someone, an intelligent design, a designer that actually created this universe with these intricately, as I mentioned, crafted parameters that make it hospitable for human life. Which one is the greater leap of faith? Your logic would answer that. Another argument for the existence of God. So now we move to the fourth argument. So we mentioned the cosmological, the ontological, the teleological, and then we talk about the argument from desire. And this was pioneered by C.S. Lewis, a British author and apologist. The argument from desire. It basically states that every natural desire in us corresponds to a real object that can satisfy that desire. But there exists in us a desire which nothing on earth or creation can satisfy. Therefore, the conclusion follows, therefore, there must exist something more than earth, outside of earth, and more than the creation which can satisfy this desire. This something is God and life with God. C.S. Lewis says, when he explains the argument from desire, he says, creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for these desires exists. A baby feels hunger. There is such a thing as food. A human being is thirsty. There is such a thing as water. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable and the most logical explanation is that I was made for another world. I was made for another world. That he said in his book Mere Christianity, in chapter 10. C.S. Lewis goes on to say, a man's physical hunger does not prove that a man will get any bread. He may die of starvation, but surely it does prove that he inhabits a world where edible substance exists. Likewise, though I do not believe that my desire for paradise proves that I shall enjoy it, I think it is a pretty good indication that such a thing exists and that some men will. A man may love a woman and not win her, but it would be very odd if the concept called falling in love occurs in a genderless world. Very well put. A desire in me necessitates the existence of a satisfaction of that particular desire. Moving on to the fifth argument for the existence of God. So we recap again the cosmological, ontological, teleological argument from desire. Now we talk about one of my personal favorite, argument for the existence of God, the moral argument. Can we prove the existence of God from a moral standpoint using the moral argument? The moral argument states that if God does not exist, objective moral values do not exist. Second premise, objective moral values do exist. Therefore, conclusion follows, God exists. And C.S. Lewis also mentioned this moral argument when he says the existence of a moral law presupposes a moral law giver, and that is God. C.S. Lewis also said, when I was an atheist, my argument against God was that the universe seemed so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? Just and unjust. A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. Makes logical sense. A man does not call a line crooked unless he or she has an idea of what a straight line looks like. How do we prove God using the moral argument? Moral rules and codes are not physical in nature. They are not concrete codes in nature. They are a kind of communication that take the form of a command, one giving the command and the other recipient receiving this command. And a command makes sense only if there are two minds involved, one giving and one receiving it. So since moral codes are not material principles, but personal commands given from someone being received by someone else. The violation of this moral code is not just a broken rule, but an offense against the person who communicated that command. So when you, using Christian terminology, when you sin, you have not just broken a moral code of behavior. You have not just broken a rule of conduct. You have violated a person in whom this moral law is anchored. And that person is God. He is the one that communicated this communication or this command to me, the recipient of this command. That explains ethical pain. That explains guilt. If I were just to break a rule, why would I feel guilty if I violate a moral law? How does it explain guilt? Guilt can only be explained if I am violating a person, a lawgiver that actually established or commanded this law. God created the world and had also provided moral commands or moral law of conduct upon which, or binding to us and with which we should all adhere to. Finding God in morality, again, some attempt to argue that they don't need God to be good moral individuals. I don't need the existence of God to be a good person. Some may argue, and I cannot argue against that. Yes, you don't need God to live a good moral life. I know a lot of atheists that actually live good moral lives. But the real question is this: why should you? Why should you? That's the question. Why should you live a moral life? Logically, it's unexplainable. In the name of whom or what do you ask me to behave?